Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, Behr Paint. Which company is best? Which paint company should you end up using? I'm James from thepaintpeople.com and welcome to Paint School, where we talk about the world of professional painting and decorating, and pretty much give you the basic, essential information that you need to know. As someone who has worked in the retail and professional application side of painting, I feel I have a pretty solid grasp of both the technical and practical aspects of paint. Now, this particular video came from a particularly fiery back and forth between a few of our viewers. And I really do like to see the amount of passion people have, especially when they're talking about certain companies. Like a lot of retail products, there is a natural tendency to have allegiance for one company over another. There are some painters that swear by Farrow and Ball, and others that only really like to use Deluxe. Why is this? Well, we first need to figure out what types of painters we're talking about here. I think there's a big difference between consumers and contractors, and that's largely because of how often each of these types of painters buy and use paint. If you're out there painting 5 days a week, maybe you're not as inclined to experiment and try different products because you want your jobs to be as predictable and streamlined as possible. This usually means it's going to be easier to keep using the same Benjamin Moore Regal you always use, which means you're more likely to encourage your customer to go with it, which then means they're probably going to have more experience with that product and company as well. It's a bit of a cycle. There has come a point in the industry where a lot of paint companies make some pretty darn good products, and this is largely due to the wonderful concept called competition. As shiny new products come out, other companies are forced to step their game up, for lack of a better term. If you have the budget for a premium product and you want something that is going to last a long time and have a very user-friendly experience, you can find that in many of the major players, whether it's Sherwin-Williams Emerald or Benjamin Moore Aura. As long as you're comparing apples to apples and not trying to compare a more cost-effective brand's contractor grade versus a top-of-the-line designer paint in another, you'll find that there's bound to be one product that will check all your boxes in pretty much any company. But like I mentioned earlier, there are many people out there that have adopted the "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" methodology when it comes to paint, where if they're happy enough with what they're using, then why risk having a poor experience with something else? So that's why I can understand why someone would repeatedly come back to the same product or same company, not necessarily because it's definitively and objectively the #1 paint of all time, but it's the one that best suits their workflow, as far as they know at least. Another reason someone might constantly come back to the same paint company is the diversity of products within that company. While something like Farrow and Ball might have a relatively slim product line, which ends up being fairly easy to understand for most people, you'll have Sherwin-Williams on the other hand that has a countless amount of different products that are all tailor-made for very specific purposes. This is part of the reason Sherwin-Williams is so popular with professional painters, because of the amount of selection at their disposal. What about the do-it-yourselfers, or the people that don't paint on a regular basis? Why do a lot of my customers tend to gravitate to companies like Benjamin Moore? I think it's because of another big reason to use a paint company, and that is their color selection. We talk a lot about color on this channel, and I have to say that Benjamin Moore puts together some really great and varied color palettes on a pretty regular basis. Instead of rearranging pre-existing colors into little pamphlets or catalogs, like a lot of the other companies do, Benjamin Moore is really great at refreshing their catalogs all the time. And this is big because it speaks to their appreciation for interior decorating and design as a company. But James, what about color matching? I mean, you're kind of right there. Just because you really like a paint color from a specific company doesn't necessarily mean you need to use that company's paint because of the wonderful art of color matching. And that's something we've talked about a few times. But even with a crossover formula and an amazing color matcher, you always do run the risk of very subtle differences in the final color once you match it. The only surefire way to get chimichurri mixed for you properly is getting it in a Benjamin Moore paint. So if you're wondering which paint company to use whichever one makes you happiest. If you've had amazing experiences with Marquee, that's great. If you're in love with Benjamin Moore's new Aura Color Stories palette, I don't blame you because so am I, then go for it. If you want to learn more about the CSP colors, which are exclusive to Benjamin Moore Aura, you can watch a video all about it right here. These colors are made up of 6 different colorants each, which is incredible, and it really gives them a unique look.